It was a special night for Petunia. Larry had asked her out to a new restaurant that she had been really wanting to go to as of recently. As she was getting dressed for her date with Larry at her house, Tina was about to head to bed. "Gee, Petunia, are you nervous?" asked Tina. "Why, no, not at all, Tina," replied Petunia behind her closet door. "Okay, so how long were you and Larry dating for?" asked Tina. "Oh, ever since I graduated high school 6 years ago. He told me that he really liked me on the day before I had graduated. I think he was a sophomore at the time, though," replied Petunia. "So you were 2 grades ahead of him?" Tina asked. "Yep, I'm almost 2 years older than him," replied Petunia. "Huh, I didn't know that, even though I've been your best friend since college," Tina said. Petunia hopped out of her closet with her dress. It was a red dress with a floral printing on the skirt and a mustard yellow flower in the center of the chest, similar to her usual pinkish purple dress, and Tina wound up getting a nice glance of it. "Ooh, it's rather nice looking," Tina said. "Thanks, I've been saving this dress for a really special occasion," Petunia said. "Well, you two go on ahead and have a great time. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow," Tina said. "Thanks, I'll see you as well," Petunia replied as Tina went to her room. Petunia then grabbed her truck keys and headed to the flower delivery truck that she used to pick up Larry. While thinking about how the date might have gone out, her stomach wound up grumbling in the process of it. "Ugh, I better get there soon before I end up eating myself," Petunia said to herself jokingly. At Bob and Larry's house, Larry was wearing a fancy tuxedo. "I sure hope this goes well," Larry said nervously. "Oh, come on, Larry. You're gonna do fine. You got this," Bob replied. "Are you sure about that?" Larry asked. "I'm positive. Y'all two have been together since she graduated. I'm pretty sure that things will go smoothly for your first date," Bob replied. "Okay, if you say so." Larry then looked around and proceeded to notice the headlights of Petunia's truck approaching the home. "Ah, she's here, Bob. Look, I gotta get going. I'll see you later tonight," Larry told Bob. "Yeah, you two have fun, but not too much fun," Bob said, following a wink and a grin. "Okay, Bob, thanks," Larry said as he went out of the door. Petunia then pulled up at Bob and Larry's house on the countertop. As Petunia got out of her truck, Larry noticed her red dress, and he stared at her because of it. "Wow, Petunia, you look amazing," Larry told Petunia with a goofy expression on his face. "Thank you, Larry," Petunia said. "So, you ready to go? 'Cause I'm really hungry right now," Petunia said. "Yeah, let's get going. I'm hungry too," Larry replied. As the two were on their way to the restaurant out of the front yard, they asked each other about how things were going on with their lives. Larry asked Petunia about her flower shop, while Petunia then proceeded to ask as well about his career as Larry Boy. He had already revealed his secret identity to her about 6 months earlier, and he went out of his way to explain that he had to stop Motato several times, and that was of course where he wound up taking Junior under his wing as a sidekick, and where Laura, Jimmy, and Bob wanted to become superheroes as well. They had, especially with Bob including. They wound up arriving after the restaurant a couple of minutes later. The moon was shining bright, and the night sky looked extremely beautiful. The two of them proceeded to get out of the truck and then immediately go inside of the restaurant. There were a lot of fancy vegetables there. Neither of them could really recognize a majority of them, as they were the only two that were dining there. They knew the only people that they really knew that were actually there were Mayor Archibald and Ebenezer. Then they proceeded to head to their table. "This place seems really nice," Petunia said to Larry, trying to strike up some form of a conversation after their last one. "Yeah, it does," Larry replied, looking around the fancy restaurant. Mayor Archibald and Ebenezer both noticed them out together and made their way towards them to see what was going on. "Hey, Larry, Petunia, y'all going out on some kind of date?" Mayor Archibald asked. "Yeah, kinda. This is our first one," Petunia answered. "Although we've been together for some time now," Larry stated. Yeah. "Y'all have been together for that long, and it took you that long to actually go on a date?" Ebenezer said, rather unimpressed. "Yeah, I was nervous about asking Petunia on an official date, plus she's 2 years older than I am," Larry answered. "Okay, then I'm going back to my dinner. Have a good time on your date," Ebenezer said. "Yeah, I need to go finish my dinner too," Happy first date, you two. After that, Larry and Petunia then proceeded to have dinner together, and a waiter who apparently, which happens to be an ear of corn, approaches their table. I've heard about this is y'all's first date. You willing to play a choice of music over the intercom for the occasion? What kind of music would y'all like? The corn waiter asked. Larry and Petunia answered at the same time with different choices. Larry, disco. Petunia then responded with romantic. The two then stared at each other in confusion. Larry, isn't disco a little too much? Petunia asked. No. What's wrong with a little disco music? Larry asked. This is a date, not a 60s disco dance-off. Don't you think that romantic music would be a little bit more suitable for a situation like this? Petunia answered. Not really. Romantic music is boring. Only boring people listen to that. Disco music is fun, Larry replied. Petunia then proceeded to get a little offended by that. So you think I'm boring, Larry? Petunia asked defensively and slightly angrily. Larry, in return, wound up getting a bit defensive as well. No, I just think that romantic music is boring, Larry replied. Well, you really don't have to be rude about it. I didn't say anything rude about disco music, did I? Petunia upsettingly asked. No, and you don't have to talk to me like that either, Larry said angrily. Mayor Archibald Ebenezer and some of the other vegetables in the restaurant noticed the two start fighting. Oh, great. One of those ugly moments couples have, Ebenezer replied nervously under his breath. Okay, I don't want to get in the middle of whatever this is, the corn waiter said as he backed away from the cucumber and rhubarb's fight. Well, you started it. All I was doing was making a simple suggestion, Petunia said rather angrily. Well, it was a bad suggestion. Don't you have any taste in music, woman? Larry asked angrily. Don't you dare talk to me like that, Larry, Petunia angrily yelled. Don't yell at me, Petunia, Larry yelled back. You know what? This date was a mistake. I'm going back home, Petunia shouted. Hearing that wound up hurting Larry's feelings. He wound up snapping back at, Fine, I'm going too, Larry shouted back. The two then furiously got out of their seats and wound up leaving the restaurant with the others sitting there and looking rather nervously dumbfounded. Never seen those two ever get that angry before, Ebenezer said quietly to himself. Ugh, really now? Not only did they not tip me, I forgot to give them their bill. Fuck, I'm getting tired. I'm getting fired for this, the corn waiter said, rather nervously as he did so. As Petunia was begrudgingly driving Larry home, since it was way too far of him to walk back, there was nothing but dead silence in the truck. The two were really upset with one another at how things had gone out, but it turns out though that the fight hadn't exactly ended yet. Larry proceeded to burp, which caused Petunia to get rather upset even more. You could at least say excuse me, Petunia shouted angrily. I was about to, but you interrupted me, Larry shouted back. Petunia then proceeded to take her eyes off the road and glare at Larry. This date was a total disappointment. Maybe I should... Petunia half said. Petunia had accidentally ran in her truck into the stairs in the front of the house and knocked them both out. Fortunately, Mr. Lund had seen what happened and called an ambulance immediately. After he had done so, he wound up picking up his phone after being informed that an ambulance was on the way. He proceeded to head to the wrecked truck and noticed that Larry the Cucumber and Petunia were in the vehicle and appeared to be unconscious. Larry, Petunia, oh, dear God, come on, you damn ambulance, hurry up, Mr. Lund said to himself. The ambulance then arrived in about a few minutes and then put Petunia and Larry inside of the back of it and rushed into the emergency room. The two were placed in separate rooms and both of them were still unconscious. Bob and Tina then received phone calls from the hospital telling them what had happened. They wound up panicking and informing the voice of the other and that they'd be on their way. The two of them coincidentally ran into each other while on the way to the hospital. They knew that each of them had gotten the phone call from the hospital regarding Larry and Petunia, so they let some of their friends know what had happened so that they could come. The others, however, wound up hearing and immediately went over to the hospital to check it out. 30 minutes had passed, and Petunia then wound up waking up in her hospital room. Noticing that the doctor was there, she asked him a question. Doctor, what happened? Petunia groggily asked. You and your boyfriend were in a car crash. Y'all were both knocked unconscious for a while, but you're gonna be fine. But what about Larry? What happened to him? Petunia asked panically. He has yet to wake up. He appears to be in a coma. He was bumped on the noggin pretty hard, and we don't know if he's ever going to wake up. All we can do now is just wait. I'm sorry, the doctor answered somberly. Petunia then stared into the thin air after hearing that and began to tear up. She then got out of the bed and hauled herself to Larry's room and saw him in his hospital bed, in a coma. Realizing what had happened, then she immediately started crying heavily, thinking about what had happened, especially after their argument, their fight, and everything else. A bunch of their other friends had wound up coming by, and they were all rather shocked at seeing what was going on. Petunia, are you alright? What the heck happened to Larry? Tina asked, shocked and scared at what had happened. What happened between the two of you that caused that accident? Bob was tearing up at seeing his best friend there. I wasn't expecting the both of you to fight like that, especially on your first date, Ebenezer stated. I'm fine, but forget about me. What happened to Larry? Petunia said. Petunia, calm down. It wasn't your fault. Accidents happen, Pa Grape said. It is my fault. I shouldn't have yelled at him like that. If I didn't raise my voice at him and get my eyes off the road... Bob then proceeded to walk over to Larry's bed. He wasn't exactly sure what to do. He kept looking and looking and looking. He didn't have anything more to say. Look, Petunia, do you need me to get you anything? Drinks? Food? Something? No, I just want to take back what happened, Petunia said. The doctor wound up coming in and told Petunia that she was not hurt enough to stay and that she could finally go home. Petunia and Bob reluctantly went home. Everyone was trying to comfort them in their time of need. Everybody else, on the other hand, was just way too upset to even remotely do anything. It was a relatively terrible day for the both of them, but for Petunia it was much worse. Tina had wound up coming home later on and went into Petunia's room to see what was up. Petunia, can I come in? Tina asked. Sure, Petunia answered. Tina then wound up coming in, seeing Petunia still laying on her bed looking depressed. You want something to eat? Tina asked. Nah, I'm not hungry. Maybe later, Petunia answered. Look, I know you're still upset about the whole thing, Tina said. Upset? Do you not realize what the heck I did? I'm an idiot for letting that happen to him, Petunia said. Don't be, it was an accident. Some couples fight sometimes. Saw my mom and dad do it a couple of times when I was little. Did their fights ever result in one of them being hospitalized due to an accident that was caused by a fight? Petunia asked. No, but when you put it that way, not really, no, Tina replied. You know what, Tina? I'm going out for a burger, Petunia said. Okay, I'll go cook you one, Tina said. No, you don't have to. I can just go order one out, Petunia said, knowing that she and Tina weren't really good cooks, and sometimes when they ordered their meals out. But Petunia did cook sometimes. She wasn't really good at what she did, but she tried. Alright, well, I'll be back when you need me, Tina said as she left for Pa Grape's store. While Tina was on her way to the shop, she ran into Ebenezer. Hey, Tina, how's everything going? How's she doing? Ebenezer asked. Barely any progress, Tina answered. Oh, well, if you ever need me or anything, just if you ever need me for anything, just let me know if you want to talk. I'll keep that in mind, Ebenezer, Tina replied. Back at Petunia and Tina's house, Petunia fell asleep. For the first time in almost a week, she had a nightmare of her friends being hurt because of her anger. She woke up and realized that it was a dream, and she wound up crying because of it. Tina came home with a burger and gave it to Petunia, and she ate it slowly. She didn't exactly eat much of them as often, but still, she still enjoyed it nonetheless. Alright, my little shadows. I don't normally do reviews for separate chapters, but I feel as though that this is something that needs to be stated. This is a story that Fantastic Mitchell had requested me to sit there and do for a good long while. It's taken me quite some time to finally get to it, and given the fact that it is Fantastic Mitchell's birthday, I decided to go out of my way and finally narrate it. Alrighty, I'm gonna be 100% honest with all of you. Chapter 1 so far was really not very promising. This has to primarily do with the grammar and the punctuation in this pasta. there were so many run-on sentences. A lot of things in this story didn't exactly make a whole lot of sense. I mean, to put this bluntly, the grammar in this story needs a massive overhaul. Like, a serious massive overhaul. I actually had to improvise heavily within the story just to make sure of it that things made sense. The run-on sentences in this are so extreme that I actually really had to time myself as quickly as I possibly could to make sure of it that I didn't sit there and jump into the next sentence that should have had a period there. Dear God, people, this was a mess. This was a major mess, and I looked into the story a little bit more. I've been looking at the other chapters, and it's kind of the same. I even sat there and I skipped to the final chapter, and oh God. Look, I'm not trying to sit there and be a dick about things right now, but this story seriously needs a massive overhaul in relations to the grammar, the punctuations, and the fact that there's no, how do I put this? There's no full description of what goes on. I mean, I'm not kidding. The first chapter alone didn't have a whole lot of descriptions to it. There was no breaks with the talking. I mean, the very most that you could probably get was like maybe a couple of small paragraphs, but even then, it was very difficult to read because there's so many run-on sentences. Like, I'm gonna read it for you as it is. As the two are on their way to the restaurant out in the front yard, they asked each other about their lives. Larry asked Petunia about her flower shop, while Petunia asked Larry about his career as Larry Boy, and how he had stopped Motato several times, and then he took Junior under his wing as a sidekick, and when, like, there is not a single period in this up until the end, and this is a problem with the rest of the story. Now look, this, I actually can't read any more of this pasta because of how poorly the grammar, the sentence structuring, and everything else in this is. Not to mention the fact that the story in question, in my honest opinion, really could, in and of its own self, been a little bit more, how do I put this, realistic to some extent. I mean, maybe this is just me, but I'm not really too crazy about the whole story itself, basically having Petunia causing an accident, Larry goes into a coma, things like that. I think stories like that have been done before, and it just doesn't really feel that original. And the reactions and everything from the characters, like, I couldn't really read much of it because, again, it was kind of hard to actually read. And, like, yeah, look, the one thing I am going to say before I do read any more of this, please do a major overhaul of the story. Please. The grammar in this is abysmal. The sentence structuring is bad. The fact that almost every single sentence in this, with the exception of the dialogue within the characters themselves, was just, yeah, no. The run-on sentences are bad. The fact that certain phrases and the like make absolutely no sense. You see, the problem I can say right now is that all of these are in present tense, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Future tense. The doctor comes in and tells Petunia that she's not hurt enough to stay and that she can go home. Petunia and Bob reluctantly went home, everyone trying to comfort them in the time of need. Junior, and basically the tenses in this are really, really weird, because sometimes, especially with the first sentence itself, again, being in future tense, some of it not making a lot of sense. Geez, I'm sorry that I'm not making a whole lot of sense with this. It's just, this story kind of hurt my brain a little bit to read, so I'm kind of all over the place right now. It's been a while since I've really done a full-fledged review of a story like this, but reading this was very hard to do. So my personal advice I can say before I read any more of this, please do what you can to make sure that the grammar itself is worked on properly. Do a massive overhaul, add a lot more descriptions, space everything out a little bit better next time around, so that way everything just doesn't happen immediately. There needs to be a proper level of build up, and the story just doesn't exactly have that. At least to me, that is. And also add a little bit more, again, more detail with the reactions of the characters. And if you really want a little bit more advice, have the characters act a little bit more realistically. Maybe that's just me. This could just be a personal thing, but this is just a little advice here for you. Overall, I can say that I'm not going to give a final thoughts, or I'm not going to give a rating just yet until the story is over, but I did want to throw in this little review here because, again, there's a lot about this story that really needs a lot more work to it. But there could likely be some things that I may have missed, and I will be linking the story down below for all of you in the description, so all of you can check it out. And I would recommend, if you can, to provide constructive criticism in the comments section if you're able to, just in case if I happen to have missed something or something along those lines. I would recommend you do so, because the one thing that we want to do on this channel is provide an opportunity for, people to become better writers and the like. So again, this is my own personal thoughts. But again, like I said with these videos, and like what I always will continue to say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to creepypastas of this nature, and this is simply my own thoughts. So yeah, no final review. Thanks again for watching today's episode of My Little Shadows. If you liked what you listened to, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make new videos every week unless something crazy happens. And like always, roll the outro, because I'm out.
In fear and surprise, as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers, they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping, horror-driven, nightmarish, gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at